But this slide here at the beginning, I just like to throw that up there to show even our address at the bottom. We are located in the Department of Commerce, specifically in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. But we're downtown D.C. We're right next to the White House. State Department is right down the street. So we actually have a pretty good location in D.C. for getting around to these intergovernmental agency working group meetings that we involve ourselves in. Just a little bit of background on myself. I worked on the Hill in the House Science Committee, the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee. I was on the Hill for about 4 years, and I sat right next to Jim Muncie, who indoctrinated me at an early age into the entrepreneurial space aspect of overall space. And I'm 1 year from sitting next to him. He's a loud guy. And then after working on the Hill for a while, I spent a few years in the association world at AIAA and at the Satellite Industry Association, and now I'm at NOAA. Next slide, please. So just real briefly, I know I'm keeping everybody from lunch, so I'll go as fast as I can. We're just going to go over the background, the scope, action areas, what we've sort of done recently, our current activities, what I think we can do for you guys, the entrepreneurs, and then what I'd like to do, if time permits, is have a little bit of Q&A. But what I'd really like to accomplish at this meeting today is that I want to open up a dialogue with all of you and to hear what it is that you want most for our office to do for you. And like Jeff said, we're in commerce, and we're actually, believe it or not, your advocates inside the federal government. And it's not so much that I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help. I'm here from the federal government, and I need your help, because I need to hear from you guys what it is that you'd like us to do. Next slide, please. So the Office of Space Commercialization is the principal unit for the coordination of space-related issues, programs, and initiatives within the Department of Commerce. The goal of the office is to foster an economic and policy environment, and that's key, the word policy there, that ensures the growth and international competitiveness of U.S. commercial space industry. That's from our website. You can read that. I had to get things cleared quickly for the trip, so I didn't have time to write anything real catchy. But just the original, the origin of the office, it was actually called the Office of Space Commerce, which I like quite a bit more. Commercialization, sort of a mouthful. And it sort of fosters the image of, a McDonald's sign on the side of the space shuttle or something. And we're not about doing that. We're about fostering actual commerce in space. So it was established in 1988 in the Secretary of Commerce office. It was within the office of the Secretary. And one of its primary missions was the National Space Council, which some of you may have remember from back in Bush 1 administration. Dan Quayle, the vice president, was the head of that. And it was one of the reasons that it was formed. But when President Clinton came into office, there was no longer a National Space Council, and this office kind of drifted around a little bit and ended up in the Technology Administration of Commerce in 1996. And it actually had a director, and it had a mission there. But in 2004, the funding for it was moved into NOAA. It was congressional language that moved the funding. So that's where we currently reside. And it actually hasn't had an official presidential appointee director until this year, since 1998. 1998 was the last time. Excuse me. And the new director is Ed Morris, who came from Orbital Sciences. The scope of the office is we're to conduct activities in 3 primary areas, and in these space sectors. So it's policy development, existing policies, the 4 existing policies, but also the future policies that we're going to be working on, market analysis, and then also outreach and education, which is where I see us working the most with organizations like Space Frontier. The industry sectors that we're dealing in right now are satellite navigation, position, and timing, PNT, satellite imagery, commercial remote sensing, space transportation, where we have a play in the policy realm, but as you know, FAA, AST does all the licensing and the regulation for that. And then also in the entrepreneurial space business, and that's last but not least. Okay. Oh, one other point about commercial remote sensing is NOAA actually licenses all the commercial remote sensing satellites in the United States. There's about 40 of them that are currently licensed, and there's only a couple that are flying. But that's one of the rationales, I think, for placing it inside NOAA, was to act as an advocate on the behalf of the commercial remote sensing industry. So our mission is to promote a robust, responsive U.S. space industry. And one of the most recent things that has happened for the office is in '95, we were assigned to support the National Space-Based Position, Navigation, and Timing Executive Committee. This was established under the presidential policy, and inside OSC, we provide the facilities and the staff for supporting that activity. And you may ask, why is that important? We're space explorers, and GPS is cool and all, but why is that important? Well, it actually is. The executive committee is what they call junior cabinet level, and it's the deputy secretaries of all the agencies and the departments that are involved in GPS. So you have the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Dr. Sampson, that's involved. You have the Deputy Secretary of Defense, who's Gordon England, who's in. So this is a very high level of folks that we directly support in this effort. And Dr. Sampson, the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, he's also interested in the entrepreneurial business as well. So this is actually good news for you guys, even though PNT is something that's sort of out there unrelated. But we do have tentacles into higher level organization. The little graphic there on the bottom is actually the physical layout of our office. We're located in NOAA's HQ, like I said, downtown in the Commerce Building. And the OSC staff sit on the left-hand side of the office as you come in through the front doors there between the two blocks. And then the PNT staff and the director, Mike Shaw, who's the director of the PNT Coordination Office, sit on the right-hand side. And the staff on that side, they come from Department of Homeland Security, they come from the State Department, they come from Transportation, Air Force, and DOD. So, we have folks that physically are in our office that help us gain access into the other branches of the government, specifically Homeland Security, which is sort of a mystery to everybody, including the guys that work for them. So the next slide. This isn't being recorded, is it? No, I'm just kidding. So our recent accomplishments, we just held, let's see, our PNT Coordination Office we established in 2005. We supported the completion of the GPS Galileo agreement and the U.S. policy on PNT. There was a U.S. Chamber of Commerce event that we organized in January this year. It was a terrific outreach program, and I'm going to speak a little bit more about that later on how we can do that for you guys. Then we've also initiated, just in the last couple of months, the U.S. government industry advocacy and policy discussions, and I'll get to that as well. But then again, just to make the point, the PNT Executive Committee activities that we're supporting are at a fairly high level, what we call junior cabinet level. Next slide, please. So our current activities, like I said, we are focused on commercial remote sensing, the space policies, that we're focusing on. Commercial remote sensing, exploration, PNT, GPS, launch / transportation, and also the forthcoming national space policy, which is, depends who you talk to, but it's in revision 52 or something along those lines, that we're hopefully are going to get out soon. In the near future, we're organizing a GIS outreach event at the U.S. Chamber. That's Geographic Information Systems. It's sort of a combination of commercial remote sensing and GPS PNT. That's, again, being supported by our Deputy Secretary, Dr. Sampson. And this is probably the most important thing the point I'd like to make today is that we're going to be completing our strategic plan and how we move forward. I've been in this job for about a month and a half, and Ed Morris, the director, has been there since January. So we're really just reestablishing the office. There's 4 full-time employees now instead of just 1, and we have a director. So we're gaining momentum, so to speak. So the strategic plan is where I see you guys coming in, and we have the Aerospace Corporation on contract to facilitate us in this effort, but we're going to be going out and talking to all of the stakeholders out there in the community about what it is they want us to do on their behalf, both policy and advocacy. Because you can really break down what we do, our activities, into the 2 categories there at the bottom, policy and outreach / advocacy. Next slide, please. Okay, just recently we were, in fact, my first week there, I was asked to, we were invited to testify at the House Armed Services Committee, and I had to put together testimony for something I just started working in, and pass it through the rigorous process that it has to go through for approval. And pretty much every agency gets to look at what you write for Congress when it goes through OMB. It's a sort of an eye-opener to go through that process. But anyway, our testimony, we focused on, for this particular piece, they wanted us to talk about the economic impact that space had, and what areas that we could come in and talk to them about that. So we focused on specifically PNT, GPS, commercial remote sensing, and then also the civilian space operations that NOAA, I'm sure you're familiar with the National Weather Service and the Space Weather Center and things of that nature. So that's what we really focused on. There's some rumors that there's going to be some hearings coming up this fall, one specifically on COTS that may happen in Congress. And we'd very much like to be a part of that. We see ourselves as playing an advocacy role for the COTS program. Next slide, please. So this is our last slide. We're getting close to lunch here. But for the entrepreneurs, we haven't done much for you guys lately, I think is the message here. But in 2001, we held a workshop with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And this is something that I'd like to try to replicate again in the very near future. But our goal there was to involve non-traditional industries. We had biotech and pharmaceuticals, media, power generation, cargo delivery, passenger travel that attended and participated in this workshop. And there was a report that came out in the beginning of '02 that was called Market Opportunities in Space, the Near-Term Roadmap. And I think it's more than overdue that we dust that off and sort of have a refresh on that. I know there's a lot of folks that are looking at market opportunities, and one of the goals for myself for being here is to listen to some of these new ideas. And it was fascinating listening last night to the folks that were up here presenting for all of the venture capitalists and the investors, and hearing some of the new ideas out there. And it gave me a few new ideas as well. So with that, that's a real brief who I am and what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to ramp up here at the Department of Commerce. And I know we have probably a few minutes for some questions. More than anything, though, I want to make myself available to you guys. So I have a 2-inch stack of business cards with me. My contact info, we can provide that to everybody too. So really like to hear from folks. I know everyone's hungry, so there might not be any questions, but if anybody has any, be happy to field them. And while people might be thinking about that, I know the term ITAR is talked about a lot. especially with you guys. And one of the goals, activities that Ed has decided he would like us to involve ourselves in is ITAR, because there are a lot of interagency groups, studies, reports, things of that nature that are being conducted right now in near future. And what's kind of lacking from all that is the commercial side of things. A lot of people talk about industrial base, a lot of people talk about national security, but you really don't have the commercial side that's represented. And one of the things that Ed would like our office to do is to represent that commercial side. And I know you guys have, each and every one of you have your own horror stories when it comes to ITAR. So that's something that we want to hear from you guys about as well. And we do have a little bit of political clout, like I said. So hopefully we can help in that area. Thought that might stir something.
In terms of representing industry, being an advocate for certain things, et cetera, one of the cautions I urge on you is to not treat the Aerospace Industries Association or the Chamber as, quote, industry. They're
Right.
established industry. But as we talked about we had discussion at the last ComStack meeting a month or two ago, if anything, they're either putting things at the top of the list and intentionally doing nothing, or a behind-the-scenes impediment on some things that they think may not be in their long-term interests, like creating new competitors by unchaining them when they got to deal with ITAR-related stuff anyway, and they have the staffs to do it, yada, yada. So who you consider industry is vitally important, and there will be a tendency, I'm concerned, to look at AIA and the Chamber as, quote, industry, when in fact, since you're trying to create the industry of the future, you don't want to call them names, but on the other hand, you don't want the entrenched current interests to be dragging things down, and most of the future, over 50% should come from non-Chamber, non-AIA type of companies, is the thing I would urge on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those comments, and I hear them, and I understand. We do talk. We do have open dialogue with everybody, and that does include quote unquote old space. But we sit in our office and we have our strategic plan activities, our planning activities, and we always stress that we're not there to represent the establishment, if you will. We're here to be the advocates for the entrepreneurs, the developing, the future industries, and the AIA and those guys, they're going to have inputs for us, but they're not the only ones. And our assessment is that it's a level playing field. So we'll listen to them just as much as we listen to you guys.
Downrange, how do you see yourself in relationship to ISS?
For the International Space Station?
Right. After the NASA is ready to end their participation in it or otherwise?
Well, that's a really good question. I would like to talk to you guys more about that. Myself, just personally, I have my own ideas of what I think should happen. Having been in the middle of the ISS fight when I was in Congress, well, I wasn't in Congress, but when I was working for congressmen. So yeah, I would like to hear from the community about what their ideas are, things of that nature.
Yes. You're aware of the Centennial program that NASA has, which
Yes.
is aimed at its needs and meets its idiosyncrasies.
Exactly.
Is there any precedent that you're aware of or authority in your organization for something analogous, prizes? It may be a 50-year-old precedent somewhere in Department of Commerce. Is there anything you're aware of, and if so, would there be an interest in pursuing something like that for prizes that have a space commercialization focus that's different from NASA's?
Absolutely. Things that, if we find a precedent for something like that within the Department of Commerce, we welcome dialogue in that. There's a lot of talk about prizes. Jim Muncie talked quite a bit about prizes, and he's forgotten more about it than I'll probably ever learn. But it's something that's intriguing, and there's lots of ideas out there, and we welcome all those ideas. To answer your question specifically, though, I don't know of any currently, but there might be. Way in the back.
Yeah. Can you please tell us if it's OSC's responsibility or jurisdiction or State Department jurisdiction in terms of handling ITAR restrictions for the U.S. space private industry in dealing with commercial activities, for example, with the foreign companies in terms of launch services, things like that nature?
Right. And the current regime is it is State Department. It's not the Office of Space Commercialization. It's like I said, what we want to do is start a dialogue and listen. We don't really. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting the 1 minute mark there. I'll try to wrap it up quick. We see ourselves playing at a higher level the policy discussions rather than working inside the. There are entities inside Commerce. Like ITA that deal with inside the process, and Kim Wells, who works there, is terrific. She does an excellent job, and we support her in any way that we can. I think there was one more, and then I have to go.
Yeah. Do you see yourself as a focal point for helping coordinate as standards evolve in this industry with NTSB?
Yeah, we haven't actually had that discussion yet, but that'd be something that be more than willing to talk to you guys more about. Who's actually going to, where are these standardization? Who's going to have control of that? Where's the rational place for those to exist? We haven't had that discussion in our office yet, but be more than happy to talk to you more about it.
I'm sorry, I said NTSB. I meant NIST. I meant NIST.
NIST, yeah.
National Institute of Standards and Technology,
yeah.
Which is also part of Commerce. I guess that's the point.
Yeah. I think that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.